Hello and welcome to Connect with South Sudan. My name is Dinah Fry and I'm a board member with Project Education South Sudan, which we often call PESS. Our mission is to prepare young women to be tomorrow's South Sudanese leaders by mobilizing resources and communities for girls' education. This is our annual fundraiser. We hope you are moved by the impact donations make on these girls and will consider contributing later. No more than 1 or 2% of girls in South Sudan are currently graduated from high school. The average South Sudanese woman has only 4 years of education. Especially in the rural areas where PESS does its work, there are intense cultural pressures on girls to do domestic chores rather than go to school, and for girls to marry very early to bring a bride price of cows to their families. As the situation becomes more desperate, the push by families to marry off their daughters increases. But with your financial support of the tuition assistance and direct mentoring which PESS provides to our girl scholars, our scholars are graduating from high school at a rate of 90%. PESS is able to accomplish this by using your donations to pay school tuition, provide after-school tutoring, offer mentoring, guidance, and leadership coaching to girl groups that are organized for mutual support and camaraderie. We have 56 girls starting school last week or in the next week or two. And we are in need of $27,000 so these girls can do all 3 trimesters of school this year. It's a tough year for nonprofits, and we aim to show you the importance of PESS today. Today we'll hear from scholars in South Sudan via video and a panel of South Sudanese women. We want to hear from you, so please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. It's got 2 little bubbles, and put in any questions you'd like to ask Tamara Banks or the panelists when it's their turn to speak. We will monitor these questions and comments. We will also hear from each other in the chat box. If you haven't already, please chat where you are watching from. I've seen Washington, D.C. and Alaska and California scroll through already, and we'd love to see more of where everybody is from. There will also be some questions happening in the chat if you're watching there. I'm going to introduce our speaker today. We're very excited to have Tamara Banks, Emmy Award-winning journalist. Tamara lives her motto, "One person can make a difference." Banks is a freelance TV journalist, talk show host, and documentary filmmaker, focusing on social justice and dedicated to creating transformative social change through excellence in journalism. Her areas of expertise include social justice and political issues, nationally and internationally, particularly in South Sudan and Darfur. She also shines light on other parts of the globe where there is little or no news coverage about crimes against humanity and genocide. Here in the US, shortly after the police killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and other unarmed African Americans, Tamara launched a new show on PBS called From Moment to Movement, a platform for Black voices to be heard, unfiltered and uncensored. Thank you for leading us today as our Master of Ceremonies, Tamara. If you would like to ask Tamara any questions, again, you can post those in the Q&A and we will get those to Tamara. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. And Dinah, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. That was very generous and kind. And thank you for setting the tone for why we are here today, a very important day. I've been emceeing this event for the past few years. It's the first time that I don't get to see and be with you up close and personal. We've got this thing going on called the pandemic, but that's not going to stop us from raising money and raising awareness about the importance of girls' education. I am so excited to be here in Atlanta, all the way out here down in southeast part of the country. This is an amazing area, so it's an honor for me to be with you virtually across the globe. Welcome to all of our folks who are watching in South Sudan, other parts of the African continent, and all around the world. You know, I'm really excited to talk about my experience in Africa, and especially with Project Education South Sudan. I really want you to, throughout this whole hour, think about the resilience of these young women and the people, the South Sudanese and South Sudanese Americans as a whole. I have traveled, I've been so blessed to travel to the motherland, to Africa, many of the continents, since 1999. I think I was 5 years old, just kidding. But one of my favorite places, if not my favorite place, is South Sudan. Let me just start with an African proverb, and many of you may have heard it, and it says that if you educate a boy, you educate one person. If you educate a girl, you educate an entire nation. I mean, think about it. Women and girls, we tend to be the head of the household. Even when we're doing our careers, we're still the head of the household. We pass on information. We pass on stories about our families. We pass on schoolwork and what we've learned in our schools. So that's why Project Education South Sudan is so important, because they're not just educating one girl or 100 girls or dozens of girls or hundreds of girls. They're educating an entire nation. Just to give you a little bit of background about South Sudan, and my interest is, for most of my career, I've been interested in issues around crimes against humanity and genocide. And I wonder, how could this be happening? Not just how could people sort of be so cruel to one another, but equally important, maybe more importantly, what about the people who know about these things and just never say anything? So I got very interested in the civil war that occurred between 1985 and 2005 in South Sudan. And what had happened is the ruling party, the Muslim Arabs, and this is not a story that's anti-Islamic by any stretch of the imagination, would the Khartoum, the nation's capital, would send down the Janjaweed, the devil on horseback, to then the southern part of Sudan. And they would kill the men, capture the women and children. And many of the children escaped on foot. And we always hear about the lost boys of Sudan, right? Over 40,000 boys and young men walked from their communities in the southern part of Sudan to Kenya and Ethiopia and Uganda and other parts of East Africa. But we rarely hear about the lost girls of Sudan. And so many of those young girls escaped and made it to refugee camps, and then were also became relocated here in the United States. And we're going to hear from some of those girls and women later on this morning. But we often wonder, what is a genocide? And I think it's important to understand where, sort of paint a picture about how far South Sudan has come. Genocide is the systemic destruction of all or part of a racial, ethnic, religious, or national group. Now, that was defined for the first time in 1948 by the United Nations General Assembly. And at that time, we said, after the Holocaust, never again. Then we said, after Armenia, never again. After Rwanda, we said, never again. And here we are in the 21st century, still dealing with crimes against humanity and issues that transform into genocide. That's sort of the historical, some of the cultural background of South Sudan. Keep in mind, South Sudan has only been a country since 2011. It's barely just over 9 years old. So they're still trying to put it together, still trying to work it out and figure out their legislation and their judiciary and their educational piece. That's why it's so important to educate the younger generation so they can be active participants in the global community. Let's take a look at some of the pictures that I've shot over the time that I have been in South Sudan. There's not a whole lot of vehicles, so often people will ride on what are called bodas, and that's so much fun. But a lot of my time in South Sudan has been talking about stories that empower girls. I spent 2 or 3 months with PESS's executive director, Daniel Majokai. And here is our a picture of our driver. I call him our limousine driver. Most of the people walk on foot miles and miles and miles to get across Sudan from one community to another. So those who can afford it will be on a boda. I spent 3 months with Daniel working on girls' education. And at that time, I reported stories and also helped him do stories or to teach the young women and boys about HIV/AIDS awareness. And they're just so hungry for education of any kind, but especially something that deals with their health and sexual health. Then we had a chance to teach them how to sew. And I'm the kind of person that staples my hems. So I was the wrong person to actually send to help teach these young girls to sew. But the idea was that PESS bought 7 sewing machines and shared them with Daniel's community, Pogok, and other villages and communities, so that the young women and girls could sew sanitary pads. Because imagine, there are no Walgreens, there is no King Soopers or Kroger's or Publix, anything like that to get sanitation pads. So the girls miss out a week or more of school every month. Well, there's no way they can compete and get good grades that way. So Project Education South Sudan helped these young women learn how to sew and take care of themselves in this manner so that they could continue on with their education. So this whole, I mentioned the African proverb before. It's not just an old wives' tale or something cute to say. Statistics have shown that educated women are more likely to participate in political discussions, meetings, decision-making, and which in turn promotes a more representative, effective government. And as women become more educated, they are less likely to support militancy and terrorism than similarly uneducated men and women. So see, it's really important. You're really talking about an entire nation that is saved and impacted by community, by education. So I've been talking about these wonderful young women and girls. And so I'd like for you to be able to meet a few of them. Daniel Mojokai, our executive director of this PESS, was able to capture some of their stories on video with his camera. Don't we love cameras and cell phones? They can do anything. Let me give you a little background. The warring factors back in the day, in 1985 and 2005, for the Nuer and Dinka. Now, the war has long since been over, but there's still some insecurity and dangerous issues around the different cultures and the different peoples group. But to overcome that, PESS has stepped up, and again, not just educating girls, they are also helping build a bridge of peace. And so when you have a Dinka young girl and a Nuer young girl in a class together, there has to be peace, right? So these girls are also building a bridge of peace between the two communities. So let's take a moment here and meet some of our young girls who are part of Project Education South Sudan. Some of them are Nuer and some are from the Dinka ethnic groups. Let's take a look.
I'm Michelina Kenye. I graduated in 2018. My education will help me to connect to other people that will empower me. Second, with my education will help me to share experience with other people that have the leadership skills that will help me in my leadership.
All right. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. That I'm by name Akon Michelina Kenye. Graduated in 2018 at Langbar Modern Academy Secondary School. Graduated in grade 7.
Well, my name is Anyer Majuk Thiong. I'm a student in Daystar Academy, grade 10.
Okay, thank you, really, Daniel. I'm by name Atong Maria. I complete my senior 4 in 2018. I sitting in January 25, 2019. So I was supposed to complete my senior 4 in 2018, but they pushed us to 2019, January. So that is it. I'm a senior 4 leaver.
My name is Ruth Kuimakui.
Those young ladies are amazing. They are super smart and so eager to learn, don't you think? Let's give them a virtual round of applause. I just love them all. You know, you couldn't really see the classroom, just the background, but let me just paint you a picture of what those classrooms look like. They're cement floors, cement walls, and during the hot seasons, they are extraordinarily hot rooms where you just really, for me, you know, was stifling, but they are dedicated to their education and dedicated to coming to class every day. And then when they're outside of their communities, they share their education with their younger siblings. They sometimes do volunteer work. They're thinking about how to start a business. So the women and girls are truly involved with their community. We also don't want to forget that COVID-19 knows no boundaries, right? So South Sudan is also dealing with COVID-19 issues, and because of global warming, climate change, as some people call it, they have had extraordinarily devastating floods. The rainy season typically used to start around May or April. Now it's starting as early as March or February. So when it rains in South Sudan, it just pours and doesn't stop until October, and now even late October, maybe early November. So they're dealing with quite a bit. Let's take a look at another video that shows how the impact that these young women are having through their education on their communities. Let's roll that tape.
My name is Daniel Majungai, Director of Project Education South Sudan. Project Education South Sudan has been operating in Jonglei State, South Sudan, working with girls' education, putting girls to school through scholarships from different high schools in the area. We have about 10 high schools in the area or in Jonglei State, and most of our girls are going to these schools. We have graduated over 60 girls that have completed their high schools or secondary school level from grade 9 to grade 12. I want to say thank you to all our supporters, volunteers, board of directors in US, Denver, Colorado.
Education for girls is important because it empowers girls on their rights, roles, and activities that they would be able to do. Second to it, if you're educated, you become self-reliant. You rarely depend on others. Thank you so much. I will help change my community by advocating for the rights of the girls, like telling them the importance of studies and also the importance of the program so that they follow the education strictly, leaving behind other things that would mislead them.
Yeah, I would like to say that I will change my community in so many ways. First and foremost, I would like to say that every lady should go to school. Not only to go to school, but to complete a senior 4, and even to complete a second degree, not only degree, but master's also. As I'm now pursuing my school, I would like to go ahead so that I will be like someone, but not to end at grade 12 only. So I like to tell ladies that you ladies, you have to go to school.
The woman that I admire in my community is a woman called Amor Pach. She was a former Minister of Health. The reason why I admire her is because of her education. The position that she was having was because of how she is educated. And also, her education has given me a great motivation, of which if I struggle to go further, I may be like her or hold a position that is above her position.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for the question that you asked. Since my hope in this country, I like them to bring them up really, or I like women to be their voices. Since I know that when you educate, since the motto say that when you educate a lady, educate the nation or you build the nation. So my hope in this South Sudan, I want to be the voice of the voiceless. Since women are really vain, I want to bring them up. That is my hope here in South Sudan.
Yes, I'm working, and I must make sure that I'll change my community. I'm working with Child Rights Solidarity. It's a women empowering organization. This organization work with women, children, and adults and ladies. So I will make sure that I'll change my community. They used to distribute some parts for the ladies, and they make coaching and mentorship with women and adults and ladies. So I know I'll change the community through this organization.
So you can see how dedicated these young women are to their community. They are simply incredible. Now, keep in mind, English is not their first language. This is, they speak their native tongue in Dinka or Nuer, and then they most likely speak Arabic because that is the language, another popular language in South Sudan and Sudan. But look at that English that they have. It's beautiful. I mean, sometimes I have a hard time putting two words together in an English sentence, but they really should be commended for the hard work that they're doing. And again, by learning English, it opens up the whole world to them. So we need to give them a big round of applause for that. Yay, girls. You know, another video that I want to share with you, this talks about their, these women are resilient leaders. So they're taking care of their education. They are in their homes. They're doing things in the community, but they're also leaders in the community and throughout their families. So let's take a look at our third video. And I should also mention that the young girls are so eager to continue their education in spite of COVID-19, in spite of the flooding, in spite of the insecurity there. So that's what I really want you all to understand, that life still goes on with all these things happening in their world. So we're going to talk about more ways that you can help them continue their education in just a moment. But let's take a look at our third video.
I'm working with CBS as the women-led organization that was recently formed.
Yes, that question is really interesting. My education, or the fruit of education, are like this. Since I graduated, from that very day or that very month, I graduated. I was teacher in both public primary school. I continue to make my computer training. So I get job with computer CT printing, and then I'm now working with them. So as I'm working, I used to enhance my salaries. I'm helping my family with that amount. First of all, not only that, but I am now educated. And then I used to educate ladies in the society that you ladies, you go to school, say that you will be like me, or you will be like a Morphas. It's like that.
Well, my hope to change my nation through education is that, as I can see now, my country is backward because of education. Mostly our percentage, we girls, of education is very low. So if I become educated, I will make sure to bring the other generation that will come behind me to be like me, and also to talk mostly about girls' education. And if I complete my studies and become a good a good person in future, then it will give the other girls who are still studying a motivation of which they will be saying that I want to be like a Nyermajok. So that's my hope in education.
Okay, education has really helped me in so many ways. Since you know that when you are not educated, you even beg from some people. And since I have graduated, I even don't ask from someone. I'm the one who provides everything, my needs, like my shoes, my clothes, and even I help some of my relatives and my father also. I'm the one who support them. So that is it. That is how I come up with my education, and that is how education helped me.
Education will help me to be a better to have a better future in my community in this way. As I am now educated, I'll make sure I'll fight corruption, I'll fight discrimination, and gender inequity in my community.
It's great that these young women want to be, it's great that they want to be role models for others and bring up their other generations behind them to make sure that they're educated too and willing to extend that hand to bring them up, especially their siblings and other family members. That's great because they don't want to hold on to be selfish with their education. They want to share it, and they're quite savvy and smart to do that. So now we get the chance to meet two women who are South Sudanese Americans live, not up close and personal, but virtually, but they are joining us live. I'm so happy to introduce them to you. First, if you would please welcome Helen Abyei. Helen started her activism by the age of 13 when she encouraged and consoled her fellow South Sudanese that lost their loved ones during a massacre that claimed more than 70 people in Wow Town where she lived. She fed the women that were stranded in the maternity ward in the hospital during that time. She founded Save Our Children, or SOC, in Sudan. It's an organization that sponsored one school-age child orphan in a struggling family among the displaced persons, IDPs, in Khartoum. She founded the Family Aid and Women Association in Sudan, an organization that trained women with handicrafts for sale to avoid being imprisoned for brewing local traditional alcohol. After being able to get her 3 older children out of Sudan, Helen came to Egypt to seek asylum with her 3 younger daughters. Helen came to Denver, Colorado with her 3 daughters in 2002 as refugees, where she soon became active in the South Sudanese community and spoke about the plight of her people in different venues. Ms. Abyei graduated from University of Colorado in 2013 with a BA in psychology and minoring in playwriting. She is also a poet and playwright. Helen, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Let me introduce our other panelist today, who is Michelina Kenye. She's the Executive Director and Head of School Empowerment Through Education Foundation. Michelina Kenye fled from her homeland of South Sudan during the genocide that claimed the lives of more than 2 million people. She came to the US as a refugee in 2003 and founded a nonprofit organization, the Community of South Sudanese and American Women, CSSAW, in 2005. CSSAW has been instrumental in helping resettle young women from South Sudan to the US and empowering them through education. Ms. Kenye attended the University of Colorado in Boulder, where she graduated in 2014 with an MA in Educational Foundation Policy and Practice. In 2008, she became a citizen in the US and earned a bachelor's degree in political science and women and gender studies. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, so we're pleased to have you here and so honored. It's such a blessing. Let me start with you, Helen. I'll ask you both the same question, but Helen, I'll ask you first. Please tell us your story of survival during the Civil War and the process that you used to get to your new life here in the US.
Thank you so much, Tamara. Thanks for the humble introduction. As Tamara had just said, I'm Helen Abyei. I'm a South Sudanese. We all know that in majority of families in South Sudan, a girl's education is considered a waste of time and waste of resources. She's supposed to get married and get her children and get her parents and her relatives some wealth, which is cows, because people there, especially in the Dinka culture, they marry with cows. Not every community marry with cows, but cows even make it even worse for the young girl. So I have had sometimes where my dream of continuing my education was shattered. The only years that I spent without interruption were my elementary school years, only 4 years. When I went to my intermediate school, I just spent 1 year there, and then things fall apart. First, what happened is that the government of South Sudan came and took over the schools, and all the foreign missionaries were expelled and deported from the country abruptly. Then they took over the schools, and soon they closed all the schools in South Sudan. And for several years, for a lot of years actually, schools in South Sudan were never the same. So we ran to this area when we hear that there is a school that is open, and soon the army comes and burn down the schools, and some teachers are killed, and kids scattered all over. So that was one of the times that my hopes for furthering my education was, I never lost hope, but it was shattered. The second time was after the massacre that Tamara just mentioned in my bio. We went to the village. We went deep inside the village. We ran for our lives. At that time, also, my dream was almost gone. When we went to the village where you could not even, deep in the village, there was no even hope for how am I going to get out? Where am I? No cars, no radios, no sign of any modern world. Then when I luckily got out of there, then I came to town. And then when I started just my first academic school year, before I could finish my first academic school year, that's when I was married at the age of 15. And then I put aside what education I'm going to get. I concentrated on my children. I made sure that all of them are graduates. When men come to ask my husband that they want to marry my daughter, I was like a tigress. I just, with all my might and with all the effort I could, I defended my children from not getting married. I used to tell them, my son-in-law will be the degree, my daughter-in-law will be the degree. I don't want my daughters to get married, and I don't want them to go what I went through without education. So in all this, I never lost hope, and then I just read any newspaper I get, any old magazine, any old book I get, I keep reading, and I keep asking anybody for the meaning of the word, and I listen to the BBC when I came to town, and sometimes I try to jot down what I do not understand, and then if I happen to get a dictionary, well and good. If not, I ask anybody who is good in English. So this reading helped me to catch up with the world affairs and to make me love my education even more. Then when we came here to the US, that was a golden chance for me. After marrying my daughters off, all of them, then I started my education right from GED. Then I had my BA, as you have heard before, when I was 61 years old. Those girls back home, now that things are even getting harder and life is getting even more difficult financially, those girls will be targeted by their parents even more. They will just marry them off. If a brother wants to get married, if there is any financial difficulties at home, the girl is like a sacrificial lamb. They will just marry her off to get some wealth. And if a girl cannot have, if the girl does not have any alternative, if she cannot tell her parents that somebody is paying my education, somebody's taking care of me, so you guys don't worry, I'm not going to bother you, I'm not going to ask you for school fees. This will help them really a lot. The parents will feel that this is not their responsibility, and they will not feel that they are losing their resources for no reason. They will really help these girls if they have scholarships like what the Project Education South Sudan is doing, like all what our generous donors are doing. This will really help them a lot. So since then, I can now communicate, I can now talk to my community. I have been active in Denver with Michelina by my side. She encourages me, I encourage her. Some people even say, according to our mindset with the South Sudanese, what is this old lady doing everywhere? We find her everywhere, she's running around. What? But I say I'm doing this for all of you. I don't want any one of you to end up not educated. We are here in the country of opportunity. We are here where our voices is heard. We are here where we are being helped. So why not take the opportunity? And this time, helping with your contribution, this time in South Sudan, is very crucial. Thank you so much.
Helen, thank you so much. And I doubt that anyone calls you an old lady. You're absolutely beautiful. And thank you for keeping up the hard work to educate everyone and making sure that the girls across the globe really get their education, but particularly here in the US and in South Sudan. So Michelina, tell us your story. How did you come to the US? But starting off with, what was it like? What was that day like when you realized your community, your neighborhood, your town was being raided, and what was happening in the nation? What was that day like for you? Do you remember?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to share what I have gone through, and many other South Sudanese who went through and they have no opportunity to be heard. I grew up in a town, small town in South Sudan, where I was born. It's called Kapoita. It's in eastern part of the country, southeast. It's bordering Kenya. So I grew there as a young kid and just going to school. I was in primary 1 and primary 2. But then when we were to go to primary 3, there was a huge incident that happened in our neighborhood before we could run away from the place. Our neighbor, our neighbor has daughters and boys, and he is a director in the Ministry of Education. I am in the same classroom with his daughter. I don't know how old we were. We were just like really very young. And then over sometimes we had there was something going on in their neighborhood. Then we were like going to see what's that. But it turns out that he has pulled his daughter out of school to be married to someone very, very old, almost his age. And we were like, wow, why this? It was a huge event in the town. I just grew up now from there, just being so scared, thinking maybe I'm going to be the one, I'm not sure. But I was just so scared. There, this girl cried and did not want the man to marry her, and she tried everything, but there was no way. You are bound to follow what your parents are telling you. And there, she was forced to be taken to the village. Later on, she died during birth because she was very young, very, very young. And I got so terrified. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And what can we do? From that time, immediately we have these government soldiers coming and like starting the war, trying to fight and here and there. And it was just all mess. And that's when I ran out. From Kapoita, we came to Torit. From Torid, we came to Juba. And of course, when I ran out, I was just with my younger brother. My mom was not there. My brothers, my other siblings were not there. My dad was not there. We have no idea where they were. But we just ran, just to go to a place where you can't hear sound of a gun. But then later on in Juba, fighting also started when shellings started, you know. It was just like so terrifying, and I tried to go to school. My mom was not there, my dad was not there. I was living with my relatives. I have to clean, I have to cook, I have to fetch water. We go like for 2 miles to fetch water to bring at home. So school was not a big deal to some extent, but deep in my heart, I wanted to go to school. My mom told us that when she was growing up, it wasn't something that a family could let their daughter to go to school. But her dad, because she was a community kind of leader, he wanted his kids to go to school. The boys all were sent, and then he has to pick from the girls who should go and who should not. But he tried his best. At least my mom was able to go to primary 1 and primary 2, but that was it. She was pulled to come back home and take care of other siblings. And there she could not get the chance to go to school. And then she was telling me all the time, if you have that opportunity, please go to school. Because school will open up everything for you. You can go and work, you can earn money, you can be self-reliant, you buy whatever you want to do, so you don't have to depend on me or your dad or your brothers. So that's what I've been having in my mind. But then shortly also in Juba, we got distracted by war, we ran to Khartoum, and there I went and joined school again. And of course, every time war happens, when you go out of school and then you come back, you miss like almost sometimes couple months of schooling. So you don't go systematically. It's just like when you get the opportunity, you go and say, oh, I was in grade 2 or grade 3. Then you will be assessed and then placed in the classroom. And always you lose those months, and you kept dragging behind all the time. So in Khartoum, I was able to go and join a displaced school that was opened by the government there, because they see us coming from South. We are kind of like behind. And of course, with the war going on, it was kind of politicized. So kids coming from South were not allowed to go and join schools, like the government run schools, because they see us like kind of backwards. So they open, we have like South Sudanese who are politicians who value school. They kind of negotiated with Ministry of Education, and they opened schools for displaced people. So in neighborhood, that's where I went. And of course there was this again problem. There was running up and down. My dad later on came, I connected with him and my mom. They came and joined us, and they went back to South. So we were all the time just in a run and displaced. We have never stayed in a family, like a family unit, never, after like all this running up and down. So my dad then, shortly after he came back to South Sudan, he was arrested because they said, oh, you're supporting the rebels, the SPLM. My 3 brothers were arrested. They had been flown to Khartoum to be killed there. We have no idea. And then we have 4 priests, Catholic priests, that were also arrested. Almost 3 of them already passed because they were beaten and tortured. And it was just like that. I have, like in my head, I'm like, I really need to go to school. I really need to go to school. And after, like in Khartoum, again, the displacement, the arrest of my family, and the targeting kind of harassment, we went back to South, and again, we ran now to Kenya. So there in Kenya was a different kind of now problems. So in Kenya, I stayed with another family, and then later on, of course, I have to be registered. I went to the camp to be registered as a refugee. I lived in camp there. I have my cousin sister with 6 kids. So I stayed with her. But then there was no progress at all. Everything was just like deadlock. You can't do anything except like, oh, your friend is married to someone. Oh, so-and-so died. Oh, so-and-so was trying to refused to do housework and was beaten, and just all the time like that. But then I realized this was not going to be my end. I don't want my end to end up like that in Kakuma. So that's when now I moved to Kenya, to Nairobi, and lived with this German nun, Catholic nun. She's running an orphanage. So I came and stayed with her, and I asked her, I said, Sister Louise, please let me work for you. Let me do any kind of work in the house. And don't pay me money. Instead of paying me money, pay for my school. I need to learn English because I went to school in Arabic. And for me to really be able to join these other schools in Kenya, I have to be, I have to join it. It's taught in English. So I asked her, please, can you help me? And she said, yes, she will do it. That's how she sponsored me in a way that I do housework. And then she pays for my school. I traded it that way. And of course, then when the process for US came for the Lost Boys, I said, if I'm to go back to Kakuma, there's no any possibility that I will be able to get the resettlement process. So I asked Sister Louise, I said, since you are also doing this, can you recommend me? I need to go out. I need to go to America or to Canada, or wherever I can go to be able to go to school, because I really need to go. And she said, oh yeah. So we started the process of like coming to US. It took us long. And of course we were interrupted by September 11th.
Right. Michelina, that September 11th, I'm sure turned everything into almost taking you a few steps backwards. Both of your stories, both you and Helen are, I mean, we could do a documentary on each of you. There's so much to say. I want to make sure that we get some questions in, although you're answering a lot of questions. May I kindly interrupt you for just a moment and pause there and just ask you both, Michelina, starting with you, what is the one thing that you would want to impress on young people in general, but especially young women, be it in South Sudan, South Sudanese American girls, or other girls around the world, about the importance of their education, and how that is important for the rest of the world to understand how important education is for girls? The one thing, the one takeaway.
I would say education is a key. It's a key to the world. It's a key for everything you want. So hold on there. Get the education you need, because once you have it, nobody at all will take it away from you, except when you are dead. That's when you lose it. But education is the key, and hold on into getting education. Try your best. That's one
Absolutely.
thing I would say.
And Helen, let me ask you the same question. What is the one takeaway that you want people to understand, and not just here at this moment in time during this event, but about education, how important it is for girls and young women in general?
Oh, education is the strength. It's the voice. When you are educated, you can educate your children. You can guide them through. When you are educated, you can be part of the world stage. When you are educated, you can depend on yourself. And for us in South Sudan, you can be a voice for the voiceless. You can even tell the world what's going on in Sudan, because according to my experience, the country was closed for many years. We have been tortured, and the world didn't know about it. So if you are educated, you can get a chance of telling the world what's going on. You will be the voice. You will be strong. You will depend on yourself. As Michelina said, education is the key to the world.
Absolutely. And with that also comes writings. As I mentioned in your introduction, Helen, you have a couple of books out, and you're a poet. Can you let us know briefly where can people find your writings?
I'm still writing about my memoir. Now it's still going on, and I have my poems and my plays that are being printed now, And when they are ready, I will let the Project Education South Sudan know for anybody to access it. I have been writing poems about what's going on in South Sudan, about the loss, the street kids who do not have voice, poems about talking about the plight of women all over the world, addressing the international community.
Great.
And a lot more.
We'll be looking for those. Helen, you stay here. Michelina, let me give you the last word in this portion of our presentation today. Just real briefly, how do you deal with the emotional impact that has occurred to you over the past, ever since you were a little girl, and just briefly in a minute or less as we go on with the rest of the program. But I think it's important for people to understand that the scars may not be visible, the visible scars you cannot see anymore, but there are other scars that people need to be aware of.
Yeah, I used to be disturbed a lot and take it all in, which was not so good and healthy. But through the education that I got and through public speaking, I was able to vent and then share the situation with many people, and it gives me relief. That emotional part, when you share with others, you talk about it, you like share experiences. Like Mama Helen has been a huge support, huge support, not only to me personally, but to the community. And for me, she's a mentor. She's a mentor. Talking with her, giving me encouragement and telling me you can do it, it helps release all the stress I have in. And then also just letting, when people know what you have gone through, it's like a huge healing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you both for being panelists today. Appreciate you so much, and you're an inspiration and a motivation to everyone who's watching and those who will watch and everybody that you meet. Thank you both. Helen, you stay there. I'd like to bring on and introduce Ken Scott. I've worked with Ken on a number of stories. He's a prosecutor. He's worked in The Hague, and he is interested in South Sudan and making sure that the folks who need to be prosecuted and be held accountable for the atrocities that they have done to the country and around the world are held accountable. But Ken is also, he's been a board member for the past 4 years. Welcome to you both. And I will just thank everyone as my portion of this event closes out. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this again. Thank you. Ken and Helen.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, so glad you all could join us today. Thank you so much. We are here to support South Sudanese women get the education they need to weather the storms of gender inequality, COVID, and flooding. The Project Education South Sudan graduates have been able to maintain income through jobs, even through COVID and floods. This gives them voices and strengthens the women and their families. Let's hear one more request from former scholars.
Oh, thank you so much. The first thing is an appreciation. Secondly, they shouldn't give up on sponsoring girls, because the sponsorship they gave me has really helped me to depend on myself. So they should continue doing this thing to other girls that are behind.
Yes. My great thanks to those who bring me up, or those who sponsored me to be like this. I'm really happy to those who support me. I will not grant them much appreciation, but God knows what they have did to me. And even my father, even my husband, the one knows that they did a great thing to me. So I'm really happy to them. And I would like to encourage them that you continue with that work. It is the work of God, and I like you to cooperate yourself, and then we will be part of you. And we will try our level best to make sure that we should not let you down. We will be cooperative, and we will aim higher to make sure that we pursue or we meet your need of supporting us as ladies in FACE program. Thank you so much.
Well, Education can help me to be a better leader in my community in a way that as I'm in school now, the language that I'm speaking is only get through education. Without education, you cannot know this language. And it can help me if I go to any other country outside my country. I may speak or I may communicate freely without anything affecting me because of education.
Thank you, Daniel, for the question that you asked. I really appreciate you, the one who is here, and the first organization for the thing that they have really did to me. They have really did a great job to me, not even me alone, for some of the girls here in South Sudan. That's my appreciation to them, and I need them to put more effort to bring some girls up, the girls that are really very behind. And when there is no anyone that can even help those girls, I need them or I beg them to bring more effort, to bring more things to support girls here in South Sudan, or to build the nation. Since we know that there is war here in South Sudan, maybe women are the one who will change the country. And since we don't know, let us educate women to see whether they are the one who will be the backbone of the nation.
Wow, that's tremendously impressive. I mean, don't you believe that all these women, these young women and girls are just so impressive with their leadership, with what they've learned from the PES programs and what they're already doing and what they'll do in the future. For those of you who have given to PES before, you're seeing the fruit of your labors even now. This is what you've done. This is what you've accomplished, and we thank you so much. And we thank all of these young women and girls. And let's just give them a hand right now. I think Dinah said already that at the moment, PESS is educating 56 girls and young women, and we have 100, more than 100 young women, girls and young women on the waiting list. The only way they can get off that waiting list and get involved in our programs is if they can be financially supported. That's the truth of it. So please, we urge all of you to give generously, to make if you haven't already done so, to make a donation now. As of early this morning, we've raised $16,000 from registrations and donations, and we thank all of those who have already given so much. It's a tremendous. We're tremendously blessed to have your donations and your contributions. Thank you. If you've not already done so, please be generous and go to our website now and make a donation. The website is indicated here right next to me. It's also in the chat room, and it's also in the invitation invite. So please find the right information, go there and make a donation now. We greatly appreciate it. Let me just ask you, and when you're thinking about that, please seriously consider supporting one girl for a full years of education. That is $1,100. And we have a number of people who do that. For $1,100, you can support one girl for an entire year of education. And that is just tremendous. If $1,100 is not for you, let me give you a few other options. $500. $500 pays the expenses of our South Sudan operations for 1 month. Between our office expenses, our electronic expenses, our travel expenses, getting around Bor, all the jungle, all these things. For $500, you support our operations in South Sudan for 1 month. You can also give $420 annually or make a monthly donation of $35 to support a girls group. A girls group is a group of 10 girls. 10 girls are young women who are participating in our program. And this gives them a chance to come together for mentoring, for really self-mentoring and mentoring each other, supporting each other for computer education, for mentoring, for tutoring. And this is a place where our young women can come together in a culture that is not supportive of girls' education. So it's very important. So if you can, give $420 a year to support a girls group or $35 a month. You can also give $250 a month, which will support sending a girl to a computer education course. We all know in this modern age how important computer skills are in order to go forward with their education and the leadership that we know all these girls and young women will carry on in the future. So for $250, you can give them a computer education. $100 provides food and supplies to a girls group for 1 month. And again, these girls groups are so important. We can't say that enough. Apart from supporting their tuition for the schools, this is the opportunity for girls to come together, share with one another, support each other. And for only $100 a month, for $100, you can support their efforts and their supplies and meetings for 1 month. You can also, even for $50, that pays our electricity bill in South Sudan for 1 month. So we urge you to consider that. Or in fact, at the end of the day, give any amount that you can, and please be generous. And this year we actually have a special gift for anyone who donates $250 or more, or contributes $35 a month. For those of you who do that, we have a book called Lost Girl Found. It's a novel written by a local writer here in Denver, Leah Bassoff, and it's based on Michelina's story, the woman who you just heard from a moment ago. So if you'd like to receive one of these books, please give $250 or more, or commit to contributing $35 a month to a girls group. Please, you've seen what all this means to these girls and young women, and we ask you to be generous now. In fact, allow me to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you now. Whatever amount first comes into your head to give, some thought comes into your mind. You say, well, I can give this much. I challenge you to think about doubling that amount. Most of us can actually do that without stretching too hard or imposing too much on our budgets. But whatever amount comes into your head to support these girls, please think seriously. Double that amount. It will mean so much to these young women and these girls to be supported, getting this incredibly powerful education, and get some of these 100 girls on the waiting list to get them into the program. Thank you so much. Over to Helen.
We are a small organization that makes big impact with the community in both towns, South Sudan. A town that, amidst flooding and COVID, values education and plans to allow students return to school this month. You can keep these girls in school. Project Education South Sudan is creating harmony between and among rival communities, too, by supporting education of both Dinka and Nuer girls. The rivalry between the Nuer and the Dinkas is so intense that they don't talk together, they don't visit each other. But Project Education is besides getting these girls to school, is peace building. Is building peace between these two communities. If a Dinka girl can visit a Nuer girl, and the Nuer family welcomes her, and vice versa, this is just peace building, and your generous contribution is helping towards that. And back to you, Ken.
Thank you so much, Helen. I've known Helen now for a few years, and she's continues to be such an impressive woman. And basically, every time I meet with her or talk to her, I'm impressed every time. So thank you so much, Helen, for all that you've done in providing leadership to these young women and as a role model to these young women and many others. So that really is, we're wrapping up our program now. On behalf of the PESS board, on behalf of our in-country director, Daniel, on behalf of our girls and young women, I want to thank all of you for participating in our program today. It means a tremendous amount to all of us, and especially to the young women and girls. Again, if you've not already done so, I urge you, please go to the website. The address is right here on our screen. Please go to the website and give generously. This is our big fundraiser for the year, and we count on the fundraising that we're doing now to support our programs throughout the year. You've seen the young women, you've heard their testimonies, you've heard how much difference this has made in their lives. I urge you, please, if you've not already done so. And for those who have done so, thank you so much. Thank you so very much. But if you haven't already done so, please go to our website and make a donation now. It would be a tremendous and much appreciated by the young women in our program. So I say thank you again. Good morning and have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.